Erev Tov, good evening, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We are so excited to celebrate Shabbat tonight, together in the sanctuary, together online. Not only us together in this moment, but so excited as well to welcome our friends, our guests from Paper Midrash, Isaac and Rabbi Shauna, who are going to lead us tonight, tomorrow morning for a select crew tomorrow night as well, in learning and art and in a chance for us to broaden our own experience, broaden ourselves, deepen our commitment as part of our Kyle Herman Crush Tool Scholar in Residence, Artist in Residence weekend. We're going to begin this evening with Shabbat worship, and then we're going to turn the floor over to Rabbi Shauna and to Isaac. So we're going to begin. We're going to do something a little different tonight. Many of you have been to URJ Biennial or to other URJ experiences where you've experienced visual tefillah. This is Isaac's and Rabbi Shauna's visual tefillah slides that we're going to be using tonight. For those of you following along online, I hope you can see it okay. I am still going to be calling out page numbers from Mishkan Tefillah, so if you have the flip book or your own copy handy, you can go and look at that as well. But it's a chance for us to experience, our religious school kids are used to this. We're not, so this is a chance for us to experience something different as well. So we turn to page 10, and we turn to welcoming each other as we join in singing Hine Ma Tov U'Manayim, how good it is, how joyful and wonderful it is that we can celebrate Shabbat, all of us together. Welcome the light of Shabbat into our lives. For those of you at home, if you have not yet lit your Shabbat candles, we invite you to do so. For us together in the sanctuary, we turn to page 2, or to the screen in front of us as we join with our cantor in the blessing of our Sabbath lights.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvoto, v'tziranu להדליק
We welcome Shabbat like a bride, like a queen, as we join in singing Lecha Dodi, beginning on page 20, remembering to rise to greet the Sabbath bride on the last verse. Don't stand up yet. Don't stand up yet. Rising on the last verse. Page 20 for Lecha Dodi.
la 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 אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה אלי יאללה לחדדי יאללה לקראת כלה במחשבה תחילה יאללה לחדדי יאללה לקראת כלה יאללה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי כי בערך קומי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה יאללה לחדדי יאללה לקראת כלה יאללה בני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בלה גם בשמחה ובתהילה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה
We turn to the holiness in our lives as we turn to Chatzi Kaddish, page 26.
יתקדש שמי רבה ועמד יברך חירותי וינמיך מלכותי בחייך וביום ראשון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב דיברו עמי יהי שמרה במברך לעולם
spiritually, we rise for the Baruch Hu. Listen for the still small voice in each of us as we turn to pages 34 and 35 and we join in the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Let's be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, ואתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Either on the screen in front of you or on page 39 at the top of the page, let's read together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך כי פרענה את יעקב, וגלום יד חזק ממנו ברוך. אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapareh sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We rejoice in singing Vishamru on page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל
Physically, spiritually, we rise for the Amidah.
Adonai sifatay tiftan kufi agitay latecha. Adonai, open up my lips and my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanura, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imot, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Le'man Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magei, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Li'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach u'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim b'Chesed, Mechayei HaKol b'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim ve'Rofei Cholim, U'Maitir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato Lishenei Yachad, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, U'Emido Melach, Melech Limid U'Mechayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh Hashem hakadosh, U'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh.
We may be seated. And we take time in our service to think of those who are in need of healing, a healing of body, the healing of spirit. If you are participating online, I invite you to share the names of your loved ones, those you are thinking of who are in need of healing, in the comments below. If you are here in the sanctuary, I invite you to share that name as my eyes meet yours. For all those we mention out loud, for all those we mention in our hearts together, we pray for healing on the screen in front of us or on page 253. We're going to forego sermon and Torah reading so we can get to Rabbi Shauna and Isaac's presentation that much sooner. So with that in mind, we turn to page 282, to Aleinu L'Shabeach, and physically, spiritually, we rise.
Aleinu L'Shabeach, L'Adon
be seated. On page 290, it is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gifted me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. If you are in the first 30 days of your mourning, the period of Shloshim, whether you're in this sanctuary or the sanctuary of your home, I invite you to rise at this time. And if you are in the first year of your mourning, I invite you to rise. And if you observe a yard site, the anniversary of a loved one's passing, I invite you to rise at this time. And if it is your custom to rise, to remember those whom only we can remember, the martyrs of our people, those of every race and nation who have died, sanctifying the divine name, I invite you to do so as we turn to page 294. Page 294, and we join in Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bialma Divra Chirute, Biamlich Malchute, B'chayechon Uv'yomechon, V'chaye D'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala V'izman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam U'lalmei Almaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yithalal Shemei D'Kudisha B'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. As one congregation, we remember Florence Adele Wallace, Anita Hershen, Robert Barnett, Woody Bass, Molly Bush, Lena Cooper, Mildred Foreman, Helen Gilbert, Gershon Gitlin, Abraham Goberman, Naomi Goldstein, Bertram Grant, Maria Greschler, Edith Lebowski, Esther Miller, Louis Raphaelson, Betty Resnick, Walter Schiff, Abraham H. Sigmund, Charles H. Simons Jr., and Sean Snyder. And I would ask if you have a name to add. For those participating online, please feel free to add that name in the comments below. And those of us in the sanctuary, add the name of your loved one as Maya scan around the room. Zichronam livracha, may thee be remembered for blessing, as we say. Amen. And we may be seated. As one congregation, we extend our condolences to the family of Anita Hershen on her passing. Hamakom yinechem etchem, may the one who is a source of peace and comfort bring them peace and comfort speedily and in the days ahead. We're going to turn things over to Rabbi Shana and to Isaac momentarily, and we're so grateful that you are here with us to share your wisdom and your Torah. Many thanks to our Director of Lifelong Learning, Eliana Hall, who's going to introduce them and give us a little bit more background on them, and who's been running their beautiful slides with Isaac's beautiful artwork for our Visual Tefillah experience. Again, our first Visual Tefillah experience. I hope you have had a chance to experience it, those of you at home. And if you haven't, that's a great excuse for everybody to come out, especially tomorrow night. If you're signed up for tomorrow morning, come tomorrow morning. If you're not signed up for tomorrow, do we have any more space? We have do you want to play with knives?
Yes.
Yeah, and comics and art and Torah and Judaism. It's going to be a lot of fun. Little knives, number 11s. Number 11s? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So the X-Acto knife people in the room know what I'm talking about. But tomorrow night I'm really excited for tomorrow night's program on women of valor and other superheroes with Isaac and Rabbi Shauna. Those who have seen the inside of my office know how excited I am for tomorrow night especially. So many thanks to our Director of Lifelong Learning. Many thanks to Rachel Greenspan for keeping our live stream live and streaming, and it's going to continue through Rabbi Shauna and Isaac's presentation as well. We're going to conclude right at the bottom of the page we're already at, on page 294, as we join in singing Oseh Shalom, and then we're going to turn things over to them. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Rabbi Shauna, do you guys need these things, or do you want to? Okay, then Cantor and I are going to make these disappear with us, and off you go.
So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is wonderful to welcome guests in person and to have a program like this in person. You cannot see how much I'm smiling under this mask. I'm smiling so hard under this mask. Oh, can you hear me okay? There, that might be a little better. There we go. This program is made possible through generous grants from the Bernard S. Krushtal Memorial Fund, the Kyle Herman Fund, our fantastic staff, all of the people that volunteered and helped me out and made this happen. Thank you so much. Rabbi Shauna adapts traditional Jewish concepts to a Reform modern context. She is an engaging teacher of Torah, bringing text to life with her unique modern perspective. She received her Master of Hebrew Letters in 1998 from Hebrew Union College and was ordained in 2002 in Los Angeles' Go LA campus. Shauna has been a member of the faculty for URJ Camp Newman, Go Camp Newman, every summer for the past 13 years. Isaac cuts up comic books and reassembles them into paper cuts that explore the stories of Jewish people and connect popular culture with sacred texts. He has shown his paper cuts in galleries and museums and synagogues across the globe. He speaks a lot about the intersection of art and Judaism, and he will do some of that tonight and tomorrow and the next day. What they do together is unique, something that I think you will truly love. In essence, they bring a deep Jewish scholarship to contemporary reinterpretation of traditional art. So we're going to have a really good time. And our guests are looking forward to teaching us, hearing about your favorite biblical superhero or comic book superhero, and making art. So with that, I'm actually just going to give Isaac my mic and turn this over to you guys.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Do I have this in the right spot?
Yes, okay. I can hear you, but I'm standing next to you. So.
Is that a little better? It's been a long time since we've done this not on a computer screen.
Yeah, it's a little crazy there. Am I mic'd too?
It's really lovely to be in a room praying with other people in person, too.
Yeah, I was realizing as we sat down, I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me, this is our first time.
Rosh Hashanah.
We did go for Rosh Hashanah, high holidays, but otherwise I haven't been to a Shabbat service in person, in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's a little ridiculous. So thank you for welcoming us into your community to pray together.
Yeah, we're very excited to spend the weekend with you and to share some of our expertise. So you might have seen some of Isaac's art in the visual tefillah. One of the things that we do is we look at Torah and Jewish text through the lens of art and pop culture, which is also the lens that you create your art with.
Yeah, so this is a portrait of Joseph that I made, Joseph from the Torah. You can see his multicolored coat with its long sleeves, maybe a hint of the Egyptian finery that he wears later in his story. And I was playing with these ideas of identity and disguise in Joseph's story. And so I made his coat out of superhero costumes, because superheroes and their costumes, that's all about identity and about who they are.
Right, and that's a main feature of superheroes. Many of them, almost all of them, have a secret identity.
Yeah, so Batman is secretly Bruce Wayne, millionaire playboy, and Superman is disguised as Clark Kent, a reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper.
And it's those secret identities that allow heroes the ability to do the things that they need to do. That we just accept that they are both this hero and they also have this other life as a regular person.
Yeah, and the secret identity, their disguise, can help them protect those two parts and keep them separate so that they have a private life. This is what happens when Spider-Man reveals his secret identity to the world. He and MJ, his girlfriend, are hounded by the press. Not only do they not have any private time for themselves, but he can't get out and fight crime anymore because they're hounded by the paparazzi.
Right, and on some level, this is something that he does to protect himself, that it brings him a benefit. And if we look at the story of Joseph, if we look at the story of Jacob and his children, there's a lot in there about disguises and secret identities and pretending to be someone else. It starts with Jacob pretending to be his brother in order to get the blessing from Isaac. And we're going to see, as this story starts to wind down in this week and next week's Torah portions, that this element of disguise really sticks with this family.
Yeah, and it's not just in the Torah and in these stories about Jacob's family that we have stories of disguises.
No, the most famous ones are probably the Elijah stories, right? And you've all heard the stories of Elijah goes in disguise. Anything where there is an old man asking you to do something, to hold something, to wait for something, it's almost always Elijah who is testing you to determine if you are worthy of blessing.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Elijah takes on this disguise to, help other people, to get to a certain place. We see a lot of superheroes do the same thing, where they have a secret identity to protect people, particularly the people that they love, right? They don't want a villain to target their friends or family if they find out that this person is a superhero.
Right, and we see that in Torah as well. We see that both Sarah and Rebecca pretend to be their husband's sisters in order to save their husband's lives or to assuage their fears that their lives are in danger. But in order to protect Abraham, Sarah pretends to be his sister, not once, but twice, they not having learned the lesson of why that didn't work. And then later, Rebecca is going to do the same thing. She's going to pretend to be Isaac's sister, also because he's worried for his own safety if someone wanted his wife.
Right, and we see that later on, even, as the family progresses, we see this in Judah's story.
Right, so Judah actually is going to get tricked by Tamar. Tamar uses her disguise, and she dresses up like a lady of the evening in order to force Judah to do the right thing. Judah is not holding up his obligations, and she uses the disguise in order to remind him and to force him to follow through with his obligations.
Now I'm going to take us back to Superman for another second. I love him because he was created by two nice Jewish boys from Cleveland. Superman has this additional reason for his secret identity, which is that pretending to be Clark Kent and working as a reporter keeps him close to the action. He's next to the teletype or the fax or whatever crazy technology. He finds out where there's trouble and he knows where Superman needs to be.
Well, that's the same thing with the story of Esther, that she is in the right place at the right time, and that because she hides her Jewish identity, she is ultimately going to be able to save the Jewish people. And she's got Mordecai, who knows the secret. We read these stories over and over again. We know the secret as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we sort of, we're behind the scenes with her in the same way that Mordecai is with Esther, or Steve Trevor is with Wonder Woman, helping her to disguise herself as a regular human. We get this idea that you can't just be a hero by yourself. You have to have some people with you. We see that a lot in TV versions of superhero stories nowadays, where the main hero may have a whole team of people who know their identity, who are in on the secret, just as we, the reader or watcher, are.
Right, and that's part of the drama for us, right? We read these stories every year. So when we come back to them again and again, part of the drama for us is we know their secret identity. We know, and we're a part of that drama because we know the secret, and we're also waiting. When is it going to get out? How is it going to get out? That reveal brings us the drama and helps keep us engaged in the story, which brings us to this week's Torah portion, where Joseph is also similarly in a position to be able to help the Jewish people. But his story, this is kind of finishing off his saga with his brothers, right? He has a secret identity of his own as a ruler in Egypt, and he uses that disguise in order to fool his brothers. So this is the week when he's going to make his big reveal. Last week ended on a cliffhanger, for those of you who have been following along closely, right? That after all this back and forth, where Joseph could have said, "Hi, everyone, I'm your brother," or the brothers could have noticed him, nothing. He's now sent them back and forth. He's had them bring Benjamin. He's hidden the goblet. He's now accused them of stealing the goblet. He says he's keeping Benjamin. That's where last week ended, on this cliffhanger. This week starts up with Judah making a speech to try to get their brother Benjamin set free. And that we just picked up wondering, what are the brothers going to do? What's Joseph going to do? And like Joseph, we're maybe wondering, have the brothers changed? And again, we, the reader, know what the brothers do not, which is that this is not the Pharaoh's advisor. This is their long-lost brother.
Yeah, and, it occurs to me that, this is their brother. I wonder why they don't recognize him. But it occurs to me that his disguise isn't even as bad as Superman's. He probably has the worst disguise of all, which is just putting on a pair of glasses. And in rare moments of introspection, Superman thinks about that. He thinks, when a regular person gets glasses, you don't say, "Who are you?" You say, "Oh, you got glasses." Wait, Sean? No. Oh, there you
right?
are. So,
it's intentionally a really thin disguise. And the rabbis are aware of that too, and they try to explain why the brothers might not recognize their brother. So they have a bunch of reasons because, well, the rabbis traditionally have a lot of reasons, especially in Midrash. So one suggests that he changed his voice. Either he spoke differently to them, or he spoke more harshly to them, or that he spoke only in Egyptian to them and used a Hebrew translator so they wouldn't really hear his voice and they wouldn't know that he really went out of his way to disguise his voice, to disguise himself so his brothers wouldn't recognize, so that's why they didn't recognize him.
Yeah, I don't know. We see in the comics that there are these secrets, but people recognize their friends' voices. Here we have the Flash, who has been talking to Green Lantern. They don't know each other yet, but Green Lantern recognizes his voice and says, "Are you Barry Allen?" I don't buy that Joseph could disguise his voice enough that his brothers wouldn't recognize him.
Well, that's all right, because the Talmud actually says that it is possible that you could be away from your family for so long that even your own family members would be unable to recognize you. And they suggest that perhaps this is because he has a beard. The last time he saw his brothers, he was 17. He was a teenager. Now he is 39. He is an adult. He looks like an adult. And they're not expecting to see him in this place and time, so they're not looking for him, so they don't recognize him.
I'm sorry, is anyone fooled by who this is on the screen? We can all see that it's Superman, right? It's just Superman with a beard. There's a moment in the Green Lantern movie where he shows up to see his ex-girlfriend. She recognizes him immediately in that little mask. She says, did you think I wouldn't know who you were just because I couldn't see your cheekbones? I'm not sure that a disguise like that would fool his brothers.
So there are some midrashim that say that not all the brothers were fooled, that Judah recognized this was his brother, and that the speech that he is going to give to Joseph is all about trying to entice him to break character, to reveal his secret identity, to tell him who he really is. And it's not a total surprise, right? We all have experience now with wearing masks, seeing half of each other's faces. You don't know us yet, but you probably are able to recognize each other, say Shabbat Shalom to each other. And sometimes it might take an extra minute in the grocery store, or where we're not expecting someone, but we've learned that even a mask that's covering half of your face, we're still able to see each other. So the rabbis suggest that maybe Judah saw through the disguise, and that's what's happening in this cliffhanger that picks up this week. Our portion is Vayigash, which is Judah approached him, right? It means that Judah went up to him. Judah's experience with Tamar, who used a disguise to force him into doing the right thing, perhaps he's learned something from that. He's learned how to pay more attention to people, and perhaps he's learned that it's better to get someone to reveal what's going on than to call them out, which is how Tamar teaches him. And so he recognizes it's his brother, and he tailors his speech to what he thinks Joseph needs to hear or wants to hear in order to reveal that he is their brother. So as he's repeating the events that have happened, he talks about their father to try to get Joseph's sympathy. He talks about what their father thinks happened to Joseph. And this is probably the first time that Joseph has heard any of this and heard what Jacob thinks that he has died. But it's all leading up to that it seems like Judah's either pushing him to the reveal or he's not clear enough and Joseph realizes he has to reveal his identity, but it's all leading up to the moment, the drama of revealing his identity, which is also a thing in superhero movies.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that when someone has a secret, someone's going to figure it out. It isn't always like this. At the end of Iron Man, we see 2 hours of him running around in a big metal suit, and then he calls a press conference and tells the entire world that he is Iron Man. We don't often get that clear a statement from someone revealing their identity.
No, certainly not in public, but also that tells us a lot about his identity too, right? That he's arrogant, that he's not bothering to keep a secret identity.
Yeah, usually we'll see heroes who get to know each other, and there's that awkward moment where they try and figure out, how do we tell each other who we are? Spider-Man is like, do we use our real names or our made-up names? This is probably one of my favorite sort of moments, though, where Clark Kent has decided that he's going to tell Lois that he's really Superman, so he waits until they're alone at her apartment, and he's going to do the reveal in a nice, intimate, private place.
Right, and that's what Joseph does too. In the moment he decides to reveal his identity to his brothers, he sends everybody out of the room, and then he lowers his voice when he tells them, I'm Joseph, your brother.
I love the idea that he's whispering these secrets to them. I mean, it feels very real, very human.
Well, because when we reveal ourselves to someone, we're not always sure how they're going to respond. And the rabbis were really aware of that fact of human nature as well. We don't know how someone's going to respond when we reveal our true selves. So it's possible that he was worried about their reaction, that they might go into shock. And in fact, there's a midrash that says that's exactly what happened. They all passed out and were unconscious, and he had to revive them.
Yeah, Spider-Man is always talking about how his poor old Aunt May, if she ever found out that Peter's really Spider-Man, that it would just kill her. I mean, and she finds out, and it doesn't, because she's stronger than that. But he's genuinely afraid that the shock would be too much.
Well, and Joseph clearly has the right idea, because later in this portion, when Jacob hears he's still alive, it said that he dies and is revived. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that tomorrow if you're cutting with us. We're going to dig even a little deeper into that. It also could be he did it privately because he knew they were going to be angry.
Yeah, when Lois does find out that Clark is really Superman, in this version, she is definitely angry. And he can't understand why, because he's told her this big secret, and she says, well, you've been lying to me this whole time, and I thought you were this good, honest person, but I didn't even know who you were. She's angry.
Well, and we may say, well, why would the brothers be angry? They're the ones that threw him into the pit. But the reality is once Joseph says that he is alive, the fact that his brothers did throw him into a pit, that they did think about killing him, that they did sell him into slavery, that they did let their father think he was dead, right? All of the things that they have done wrong is about to come to light. As long as Joseph isn't there, it's not clear that they've been lying as well. Once he acknowledges them, all of a sudden they might be angry that they're going to get in trouble, that their father's going to be furious, but that there's going to be consequences for these acts that they did. Wait, I lost the connection. I stepped too far away.
Yeah, and I suppose what Joseph is hoping for is that in this quiet reveal, that he and his brothers will be able to come together as Perry White hugs Clark here when he finds out that he's Superman. There's this touching moment when they know each other for real and they can connect.
So Rabbi Jonathan Sacks suggests that this moment of reveal is actually the first time the brothers have ever recognized each other as brothers. That up until this time, they didn't see each other as brothers. There were the 10 brothers against Joseph the baby. They didn't particularly care for him. His mother was the favorite wife. He told them about his dreams all the time. They'd be working out in the field as shepherds. He was doing his own thing, getting special clothes. That they never saw each other as a family unit in that way. And so this is the first moment that all of them see themselves and see each other as brothers.
Yeah, there's this lovely time when Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman have just started working together, learned to trust each other, and they're going to tell each other who they really are. Wonder Woman gives her lineage. Superman says, I'm Clark Kent, I'm Kal-El. Batman says, I'm Batman, because he believes he's Batman first. But it's a touching moment for them to share their truths with each other in that way.
Right, and we see in comics also that there's this sense of relief when they're able to share their truths as well, which is what happens with Joseph. When he reveals himself to his brothers, he's not just revealing to his brothers that he is Joseph, he's also revealing to Pharaoh and all of the Egyptians that he is an Israelite and who his true identity is. He's finally free to be his whole self and who he truly is. And so maybe that's what the Torah is trying to teach us, right? That we are all looking for the times and the places and the people that we're with when we can completely remove our disguises for good, where we can be our whole selves, and that we can move towards that honesty in relationships.
Yeah, just before the pandemic, Superman had a storyline in which he reveals his identity to the whole world. Everyone is going to now know that Superman is Clark Kent, is Kal-El, and it's this really great story where he says, if I stand for justice and for truth, I have to be true. I have to let people know who I really am.
Right, and if Joseph is ever going to have any healing and reconciliation with his brothers, he needs to let them know who he is as well. Up until this time, the brothers are speaking to him as the ruler of Egypt, or a ruler of Egypt. And he doesn't know, are they being deferential and kind because of his position, or have they truly changed? And so it's not until he reveals himself as their brother that he really can find out what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And that's the moment that allows for that healing and for that reconciliation and the repair of that relationship. But until they can all be honest with each other, they're never able to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, Superman here is thinking to himself about the revelation. He says, this will be good for me. But as it turns out, it's really good for everyone. For his family and his friends, they all become closer because of it.
Right, because finding the people that we can be our whole selves with, there is something freeing about that. So on this Shabbat, may we all find the courage to be our true selves and to open ourselves up to the honesty and the trust that sustains and revives and makes our relationships deeper and stronger. We say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. If you want to dig a little deeper into this, we're going to look at more midrash from the Joseph story tomorrow, and we're going to invite you to create your own midrash. I promise you, even if you've never picked up a knife before, you will be able to do this, and it will. People that think they can't do art are generally surprised at how the amazing things they're able to create. It is an adult program, or high school and up, but I believe there's space if you want to join us and kind of dig into some more of this midrash tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And before we wrap things up, we did promise people that if they had questions and that sort of thing,
sure.
if they
Yeah,
have,
of course.
I'm going to play Phil Donahue. This crowd will know who that is. So I'm going to grab a mic so people can ask questions and that sort of thing. But let's say Yasher Koach one more time to our wonderful guests for being here.
Thank
you. And just, I'm going to cut in line because I have holding the microphone, so I loved. It was fun recognizing so many of the artists of the slides you were sharing. And sharing this text in particular, I've always loved the idea that suddenly Joseph switches to Hebrew after working with a translator and just looks at them and says, Ani Yosef, and they just go white as a sheet, and as if they're seeing a ghost, as if he is back from the dead. That's a study for another time. Does anybody have questions or comments or things they want to share? I got a microphone in my hand and I'm not afraid to use it. But are you?
Well, you mentioned seeing those artists. The artists also were also operating under a secret identity.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned Superman was created by two Jewish guys from Cleveland. So we talked about Jerome and Joseph, but it's Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And the entire Marvel universe virtually was created by, you may know the names Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but they were born Stanley Lieber and Jacob Kurtzberg. Most of the comics, the storylines, the characters, the industry was created by Jews, many of whom disguised their Jewishness by taking on more Gentile-sounding names.
Yeah, so there's that little bit, right, that even Superman stories like a fish out of water story, being somewhere, wanting to do the right thing and not quite fitting in the world.
Yeah, I mean,
so we see those Jewish stories, the Jewish creators, though none of their characters might be Jewish, we see some of that come through from the storylines and the creators.
I think it's fair to say that a character like Superman or like Captain America, who are coded so Gentile, Protestant, white American, it's because their Jewish creators wanted to create a story that everybody could understand and that didn't seem Jewish. They were tucking that Judaism away in a little corner. But, you know, Steve is this guy from Brooklyn who just wants to go punch Nazis. Captain America is a pretty Jewish character. You know, and Superman is basically tucked into a rocket basket and sent down the river to Earth, where he is picked up and adopted by strangers and raised as a stranger in a strange land and has to figure out how to, you know, adapt and assimilate, but keep his home culture. I mean, it's
and his whole
Moses,
mission and
it's
purpose.
Immigration, it's all of those stories.
And his whole motivation and purpose is helping other people, making the world a better place.
Yeah, if these comic book heroes are not secretly all disguised Jews, you know, it would surprise the heck out of me.
Questions, comments, people want to share? I'll throw my 2 cents in one last time, just as you're talking about Jewish creators. It's probably worth noting that the person who wrote the story of Superman revealing his identity was Brian Michael Bendis, who himself is Jewish.
Yeah, who grew up in Cleveland, wanting to be the next Joe Shuster or Jerry Siegel.
Right.
Yeah, he's a wonderful, he also writes a great character arc for Kitty Pryde, who's a Jewish X-Man in the Marvel Universe, and about how her Judaism informs her heroism.
And a lot more of that tomorrow in Women of Valor. We go into a lot more detail about Kitty Pryde and Brian Michael Bendis.
Right. So with that, since nobody has spoken up, I hope you enjoyed this evening. I hope it's whetted your appetite for tomorrow night, for tomorrow morning, especially to get hands-on. For those, we're going to stick around a little bit, and I know there are treats waiting for us. I saw a tray of something sweet, prepackaged, no tasty cakes, unfortunately, but some prepackaged stuff waiting for us in the lounge. So if we want to go enjoy a little bit of Oneg, and if we want to have a chance to talk with our scholars and residents one-on-one and quietly, keeping our identity disguised and not streaming online, that's most appropriate. But in the meantime, we'll say Shabbat Shalom. Many thanks to our Director of Lifelong Learning. Many thanks to our scholars and residents. And we'll see you all tomorrow.
Shabbat Shalom.